Sign up for free Stratfor intelligence. Simply enter your email address to receive 2 free reports each week.
Rival Palestinian factions Hamas and Fatah held a ceremony today commemorating a unity peace deal that in theory is supposed to end a very bitter 4-year divorce between the two factions. On the surface, you would think that a more viable Palestinian government would be a significant boost to the peace process and a significant step toward independent Palestinian statehood. The geopolitical reality, however, paints a very different picture. Islamist Hamas and secularist Fatah are longtime ideological rivals, split between Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip and Fatah-controlled West Bank. The two factions not only have very deep personal and ideological differences, they also disagree over a number of issues. For example, how to manage the security affairs of the state, how to divide funding, and how to divide political power. The two factions couldn't even agree over who would speak first at the ceremony. Remember that Fatah had the political monopoly over the territories up until Hamas swept elections in January of 2006. Fatah remains unprepared to give up a large degree of that political control, even though it can't claim to speak for a large segment of the Palestinian population. Now, all of these issues are supposed to be dealt with in the coming days and weeks as this government forms, but that is still a very tall order. Israel's strategic interest is in keeping the Palestinians far too divided and preoccupied to think seriously about making unilateral declarations for independent statehood or, more importantly, waging intifadas against Israel. The news of a Palestinian unity government creates problems for Israel, but it's also not the end of the world. Israel now has to spend a great deal of energy lobbying governments around the world to refuse dealing with a Palestinian government that includes Hamas, as long as Hamas refuses to recognize Israel's right to exist. Many of these governments can use Israel's vulnerability to demand concessions in return. This is a process that takes up a lot of energy, and Israel has every interest in trying to reshape the narrative so it appears that Hamas is the one holding up the peace process and not Israel. On the other hand, Israel, not to mention the United States, wouldn't mind having more accountability over the Palestinian issue, especially as Egypt, having sorted out its own succession crisis, is reasserting its role in the region and managing Palestinian affairs. That way, should Israel experience another wave of attacks, it doesn't have to deal as much with the fog of Palestinian militant factions and assigning blame directly to the Palestinian National Authority. Ironically, Palestinian unity does not bode well for the peace process. Unless Hamas fundamentally changes its political platform and recognizes Israel's right to exist in addition to renouncing violence, then Israel can refuse negotiations on those grounds. The United States will also be under pressure to back Israel in this regard. This doesn't bode well for U.S. President Obama's September deadline for a two-state solution and a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinian government, but that was a peace process that was already largely stillborn.